Imagine a world where a mysterious illness could wipe out entire towns in a matter of weeks. A world where the familiar rhythms of life work, family, fathar, shattered by an invisible enemy. This isn't the plot of a modern thriller. This was the grim reality of the 14th century. I'm a historian, and today we are going to journey back in time to confront one of the most devastating pandemics in human history. The Black Death. It's a story that begins not in the heart of Europe, but far to the east, along the bustling trade routes of the Silk Road. For centuries, goods, ideas, and cultures flowed between Asia and Europe. But in the 1340s, something else hitched a ride on this global network. Hidden away on merchant ships, nestled in the fur of black rats, were fleas carrying a deadly bacterium Yersinia pestis. Our story's starting point is often traced to the Mongol siege of the Genoese trading post of Kaffa in the Crimea. According to contemporary accounts, the attacking army, ravaged by the plague, began catapulting infected corpses over the city walls. It was one of the earliest and most horrifying examples of biological warfare. Fleeing the city, Genoese merchants boarded their ships and set sail for home, unknowingly carrying the seeds of destruction with them. From the port of Messina in Sicily in 1347, the plague exploded across Europe. Think of it like a firestorm. It followed the trade routes, jumping from one port city to another. Genoa, Venice, Marseille. From there, it moved inland, traveling up rivers and along roads. Within just a few years, from the sunny shores of the Mediterranean to the cold fjords of Scandinavia, no corner of the continent was left untouched. The speed of its spread was terrifying for a population that had no concept of germ theory. To them, it seemed like the wrath of God, a divine punishment for their sins. Now, let's step into the shoes of someone living in a medieval town, say, in 1348. Life is already hard. Sanitation is poor. People live in close quarters with their animals, and medical knowledge is rudimentary, based on the theory of the four humors. Suddenly, a new terror arrives. It starts with a fever, chills, and fatigue. Then come the telltale signs, the ones that gave the Black Death its name. Swollen, painful lumps, cold buboes, would appear in the groin, armpits, or neck. These could grow to the size of an apple, and would often turn black as the tissue died. This was the bubonic plague, the most common form. If the bacteria entered the bloodstream, it caused septicemic plague, leading to black spots on the skin from internal bleeding. Even more terrifying was the pneumonic plague, which infected the lungs and spread directly from person to person through cough. For those who caught it, the end was swift and almost certain. The mortality rate was staggering. Somewhere between 75 and 200 million people perished in Eurasia and North Africa. In Europe alone, it's estimated that the plague wiped out 30 to 60% of the entire population. Imagine the psychological horror. Your neighbor is healthy one day and gone the next. Family members would abandon their sick loved ones, fearing contagion. Priests, who were supposed to offer last rites, died at an alarming rate. Doctors, with their strange masks filled with aromatic herbs, were powerless. They tried everything from bloodletting to lancing the buboes, but nothing worked. The very fabric of society began to unravel. The scale of death was so immense that traditional customs broke down. Mass graves were dug, bodies piled high in pits because there was no one left to give them a proper burial. Chronicles from the time describe a haunting silence falling over once bustling cities. Cots would roam the streets with a chilling call, "Bring out your dead." The world had turned into a charnel house. People believed it was the end of the world, and for so many, it was. The societal impact of this catastrophe was profound and long. With so many dead, the established social order crumbled. Who would till the fields, herd the sheep, or craft the goods? Suddenly, there was a massive labor shortage. For the first time, peasants and laborers, the survivors, found themselves in a position of power. They could demand higher wages and better working conditions. Landowners who had relied on a steady supply of cheap labor were forced to comply or see their fields go fallow. This shift in power had revolutionary consequences. The old feudal system, which had locked people into a rigid social hierarchy for centuries, began to weaken. Frustrated nobles tried to pass laws to cap wages and force peasants back into servitude, but it was too late. The genie was out of the bottle. This newfound economic freedom sparked a series of peasant revolts across Europe in the late 14th and 15th centuries. People were no longer willing to accept their lot in life without a fight. The church, too, saw its authority questioned. For many, its inability to stop the plague, or even explain it, was a sign of its weakness. The institution that had been the unshakable center of medieval life now seemed fallible. This disillusionment helped pave the way for new ways of thinking, fostering a climate of questioning and skepticism that would eventually contribute to the Renaissance and the Protestant Reformation. People began looking for answers not just in faith, but in the world around them. The Black Death was more than just a medical event. It was a historical turning point. It was an agent of radical, albeit brutal, change. It accelerated the end of the Middle Ages and laid the groundwork for the modern world. The labor shortages spurred innovation in agriculture and technology, as people sought labor-saving devices. The shift in wealth, as property passed to distant relatives or was consolidated, created new economic dynamics. By redrawing the demographic map of Europe and shattering old certainties, the plague inadvertently created opportunities for social mobility and intellectual curiosity. The world that emerged from the shadow of the Black Death was a different one. It was a world where the individual had more value, where established power structures were less absolute, and where humanity, having stared into the abyss, found a new, resilient path forward. Studying the Black Death is a sobering reminder of our vulnerability to pandemics. Even today, it shows us how interconnected our world is, and how quickly a crisis can reshape societies in ways no one could have predicted. It's a dark chapter in our shared history, but one that holds crucial lessons about resilience, adaptation, and the enduring human spirit in the face of unimaginable loss. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the past. If you found this exploration of history fascinating, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more deep dives into the events that shaped our world. See you next time.